All right, so I am back and I have some additional items today. I got some accessories in and have been slowly taking those off and kind of getting some of them ready to put on the drift missile. You can see a big old gaping hole there. Obviously, got to fill that. So this guy's going on there, but I'm trying to figure out real quick what I want to spray on the front of here. To kind of jazz it up a little bit. I already went ahead and took my exhaust out, and basically I taped up all the way around it, and then I just hit the inside right there with some satin black, and that way it will give it kind of that dirty look. It won't be all perfectly shiny chrome. So I'm going to unwrap the tape off that and see kind of how it looks inside. I may have to spray it again, but I think you'll still be able to see a good contrast. So I'm going to peel that off real quick, take a look, and then I will come back and show you. With the tape all peeled off there, you can definitely see the difference there from the inside to the outside. So went ahead and sprayed that with a little bit of satin black, not super heavy, just enough to kind of tarnish the inside and just a little bit of the outside lip, so it looks kind of like it's dirty and there's some soot on there from the exhaust. So alright, so you got my little exhaust here, and I showed you earlier how I painted the inside like a satin black, and then what I did was I went ahead and took my paint markers and actually made some gold and some like kind of yellowy, bronze, silver, blue and purple mixed in there, so that way I could kind of get it to look like titanium tips. So I think it looks pretty good, and I think it'll look pretty cool on there. With the titanium kind of colored tip on there, I've got that going, so I've got a little bit of discoloration on the bottom, actually, where the tape, when I had it on there, when I pulled it off, it pulled the silver off. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take and lay down some sandpaper and scrape the very bottom of this, the canister, because you hardly ever see any of those that don't have scrapes on them. So I'm just going to go ahead and set down some sandpaper and then just scrape it across it, so that way I can get some nice scrapes in the bottom of that that exhaust canister. Alright, there we go. So now I've got some scratches on the bottom. It's actually got what looks kind of like a little flat spot right there, and it now actually resembles my muffler on my car. Alright, so went ahead and got the exhaust mounted up on there. I think it looks pretty cool, and you can kind of, there we go, a little bit better shot with the color from the side. It'll be mounted, so looks pretty cool on there. I like it. And then now I need to mount my intercooler, which I just pulled the tape off. I went ahead and sprayed this little design on the front, which is essentially the outline of like the Silvia S. It just doesn't have the the center connecting lines, but I think you can pretty much make out what it is. So sprayed that on there so it wasn't just plain, and now I'm gonna go ahead and mount that on the front. Alright, so I went ahead and taped my intercooler in place there, and I'm kind of happy with the placement. So now I'm just going to go ahead and basically flip it up and over so that that stays in place. And now I'll go ahead and hit it with some hot glue and make it really stay in place. Alright, so moving on to the mirrors, and I wasn't sure the best way to necessarily get the holes to line up on these, so what I did was I went ahead and took one of my paint markers and I put a bunch of black paint at the very end right there, and then basically what I did was I just lined it up, and then the black paint left a dot on the window, and that dot is where I'm going to drill out the hole, and hopefully it lines up whenever I drill it out and put it through there. Alright, so something else here that I am changing out on the S15 real quick is I'm actually taking these inner lights out of my light buckets and putting tiny little yellow caps on them, because I wanted these inside lights to be yellow. I painted the buckets yellow, which is cool because you can see from the outside, but I also want the light to actually shine yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and throw those on real quick and then stuff those LEDs back in there and see what it looks like. Alright, so I went ahead and pulled the LED out and I stuck the little cover on there, and trying to put it in, but unfortunately the tolerance is so tight that now it won't fit in there with the cover on it. If I had not already installed the light buckets, I would just drill that hole out a little bit wider so that way I could slide this through easily. but since they're already glued in place and everything, I don't want to rip them out, so I'm gonna find an alternate solution. Man, these things can be really hard to get off once you get them on. As an alternate solution, what I'm going to try instead is I'm going to improvise. Alright, so I got the little lights sticking through there. I'm going to get me another piece of paper towel real quick to cover the front of this spot. I'm going to put some tape on them to stick them together, and then I'm going to hit the tops of these with some transparent yellow. Got my little lights sticking out through the paper towel there, and now I'm just going to go ahead and quickly hit them with some transparent yellow. It's actually a metal cast see-through yellow that I've got, so it's the same color I did the light buckets in when I painted them yellow. So I'm going to hit that real quick with some color and make my yellow lights. Back working on the drift missile here, and I've been toying with cutting off these wing mounts for a while, or putting possibly a wing on there, but I went and did it, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go, let go! I'm going to go ahead and just cut them off. And this is my no turning back now slices, and alright, so I'll go ahead and continue to work on that. I'm going to cut those the rest of the way off, cut them down flat, get them shaved down. I'll fill in the holes, and then I guess I will probably primer over the trunk and just have a primered trunk, maybe fit a duck wing. If not, maybe I get a wing that mounts back here and comes up and I don't know, but I don't like those nubs, and I want them to vacate the premises. Alright, so got a pile of little pieces there. I've cut the nubs completely off and have been basically kind of just using the razor blade to shave them down a little bit. I'm just going to use some sandpaper now and smooth out the edge the rest of the way. And then I'm going to go ahead and tape it all off. I got to remove my little sticker off of here and here. And then I'm going to tape off the trunk, or off the rest of the body, and then spray the trunk with some primer. Oh, before I do that, obviously, I have to fill the holes. To do so, lately I have just been, I mean, this is a drift missile body, so it's not got to be perfect. So what I did was I'm just going to do like I did up here, basically. I put some hot glue in there, and then I just took a razor blade and totally shaved the top of it to make it level. So I'm just going to do that, and then when I hit it with primer, you know, it might give some, I don't know what it'll do with the primer, actually, so I guess I can't really speculate, but I've got some holes right there that were the post holes, and I went ahead and filled those already with the hot glue and then shaved them down, and I did a little bit of green paint underneath just so that they weren't like that typical like yellow color, the glue color or whatever, but I know it's going to be much bigger on these openings, so I'm still going to do the same thing, and then like I said, I'll just primer over it. I have filled that in, and it is not pretty, but it is a solution. It is almost nice and flat. I will finish that off by hitting it with a little bit of sandpaper on top. This one is not completely done yet, and that's because I actually wanted to show, like on this edge right here, I've got a little bit of a lip that sticks up, and it's kind of funky right there. I would have to basically cut that off. But what I've found also is that the tip of the hot glue gun stays hot enough that you can pretty much run it around the edge right there to kind of manipulate what's there. And I'm not actually squeezing out any extra glue at all right there. Just using the tip of the glue gun actually to kind of drag the spot around where I need it, because it is a little bit of a high spot right there. And then of course if you find a low spot, you know, you can just pipe a little bit of extra glue right there on it and you know, spread it out a little. It doesn't need to be perfectly even, because I am still going to use a razor blade over top of this to essentially shave it all down, but this is basically getting me, some of those spots filled, so that way I have a complete coverage over all the hole. So now with that, I've kind of spread the corners out a little bit, filled in some of those little gaps that I saw sticking out. Might still be a little bit here that needs some love. Alright, there we go, looks better there. So basically that allowed me to fill it all in, and now I'll just take a razor blade and shave it flat. Same thing on this one. Sand it down, hit it with a sander. It's not really a sander, I mean, unless you call this the sander. I mean, my arm and some sandpaper is all I'm using. But yeah, I'm going to sand it down a little bit, kind of smooth it out, and then I will hit it with some primer, and then I'll have my trunk primered out. Just another thing that I think I'm going to do as well, I've been kind of using these paint markers, these acrylic paint markers throughout the build, just for, details and kind of adding different things, to it, whatnot. For instance, I did the little count numbers there on the back of the trunk with the red paint marker. But what I'm going to do, I think, is I'm going to paint some of the spots that I've went over. But that way, once I hit it with the primer, then I'm going to do some sanding on it, and probably have some of the other colors kind of show through like you would normally see on like a primered paint job. And then I'll probably take some of my window tint and just do like a real light spray, maybe like a foot or two above it, and just kind of let that drift down and give it kind of that dirtier, look, so that way it's not a super bright, clean primer, because the rest of the car obviously is not clean either. So probably do that to kind of give it a little bit of a dirty look, and then it'll kind of have that sanded and also dirty, worn, primer been on the car for a while kind of look. All right, so I have the glue in there. I have it kind of shaved down, and while it's not 100% completely smooth and flat, it's close enough. And the primer that I'm using is actually also a filler as well, so it should fill in some of those small little spots. And then of course I am going to sand down the primer as well, because like I said, I do want to expose some spots of maybe green, black, and whatnot along the way. Oh, and I'm going to do some layers. I'm going to probably then peel up like a corner close to the window, because I actually want some overspray to go out and over, because I think that'll add to the realism of there being, overspray on the body. I very rarely see somebody get body work done and they don't have overspray on their windows or on some things. So I'm going to add a little bit of overspray just for the effect. Got the little spots of some black and some gray thrown down, and that way whenever I sand it down, hopefully those will kind of show through a little bit and give me some different colors on the trunk popping through. Yeah, so I went ahead and added some red in there because I thought to myself that maybe there should be another color popping through. So just little tiny bits here and there, hopefully that will shine through with the primer, if I can remember where I put them. So this picture will kind of be my reference as well. Because I'm going to go ahead and hit it with some primer and then sand through on those spots and hopefully get some colors popping out like it's been a repaint and primered, and you know what I mean. First coat down, and you can kind of see some of the dark spots and where they've shown through. So I think with a couple more coats, and then if I hit that and sand those spots, you kind of get an idea there of what I'm looking at or what I'm trying to achieve, I think, already with it showing through. So, gotta do a couple more layers of primer, and then hopefully it will look somewhat crappy good.